I've heard the parents, and I know that there's a lot of parents that want to put their children back in school. And I certainly do too. I think parents should have the choice to put their children back in school as soon as we possibly can. Unfortunately, we're one of the three counties in the entire state that is still in phase one. As soon as we move into phase two, there's no excuse if this administration doesn't put the children back in, and that's the plan. As soon as we move from phase one to phase two, parents will have the choice. We've laid out the schedule that we'd like to bring them back in. The superintendent's laid out that schedule. But certainly parents that want to bring their children back at that point will be able to do that, and the parents that want to continue with virtual learning will be able to do that also.
Do you see the school year being delayed, and what would a week or 2 weeks, how would that help the situation?
Well, I think there's several reasons why a delay in the start of the school year for the students. I think that the teachers could use the extra training. I've heard from a lot of teachers that said they would like to have extra training on the virtual programming. Whether we do virtual full-time initially or not, the virtual system has got to be in place because there are some parents that are going to choose to keep their children home. So it's important that teachers are ready for that virtual education that they have to provide to students. So to give them the extra training is one reason why we should delay the start of the school year. Another one, you heard me very clearly last night, I've been told that about 10% of the students in this district don't have a reliable connectivity to the school system. 10% of the children in this district amounts to between 15 and 18,000 children that don't have connectivity. There's no way that I'm going to support starting the school year virtually if we have children that can't do that. Those are the poorest children in the district. Those are the ones that don't have Wi-Fi at home. They don't have cable at home. The superintendent has assured the board that the administration is working very closely with Comcast and other providers to make sure that those kids get connected. But until I'm assured that every child in this district has the opportunity to see their teacher, then I'm not going to vote. I'm personally not going to vote to start the system until that happens. And of course, the third reason that we should postpone the start of the school year is because the pandemic numbers may go the other way, right? If we wait a couple weeks, then maybe we'll move out of phase one, and then we can immediately start with allowing the children to come back in our classrooms. So I think it's important that we move the time period back. There's also a fourth reason. I mean, I fully understand that public education in this country has two major functions. The first function is, of course, to educate children. The other function is to make sure that the economy rolls along, and in order to do that, people have to work. So those two things are intertwined, and it's very, very hard to separate those two intertwined requirements of the public education system. So if we push the start date back, we still have parents that may not be able to go back to work, but then there's going to be a lot of parents that will be able to get a babysitter, because we're not looking for a babysitter that's going to help the children get on the internet at that point. The kids just need to be watched until we start the school system up. So if we delay it enough, maybe parents can go back to work during that delay period. They can find sitters. The high school kids won't be in school, so maybe there's high school students. Other moms or dads in the area can take some of those kids. So if we delay, we have several benefits out of making the delay.
But last night, a lot of parents thought that they were going to have a definitive answer as to when and how their kids were going to be going back to school. Mm-hmm. Now there's the possible delay. Parents need a plan. They need to know how they're going to be able to go back to work or what they're going to do with their children. What do you say to those parents that are still now left in limbo for possibly another week?
Well, first of all, we have the plan. I mean, you saw the plan last night, so the plan is there. The question is, when does the plan go into effect? You saw the board last night. We want to change the date. We tried several motions by several of the board members to try and get that to happen. The superintendent, and I don't blame him. I mean, he said, can you just give me a week because you're pushing it back farther than I thought you were going to push it. He had already told me that probably the 24th of August was doable, but a couple board members wanted to push it back even further. You saw one board member wanted the 31st. Another board member said September 8th, I believe. The superintendent made a valid statement to us when he said, I need to look at the ramifications of that. I need to make sure that we can do that with the calendar. We have deadlines. We have to, so many days the children have to be in class, and the superintendent needed more time in order to give us that answer. He's assured us by next week he'll be able to answer that question for us. I wish we could have made the decision last night as to the start date, but obviously the administration didn't have the answers that we needed at that point.
I know you've been a big proponent of saying that you don't want to see any child fall behind. Some parents' concerns are with the virtual education. It's obviously not the same as in-classroom instruction. How does the district do a better job this time around than what we saw at the end of the school year to make sure the kids don't slide back even further than they already have?
The way we handled virtual education at the end of the last school year was a stopgap measure. I mean, suddenly we had to close down the schools. There was no training. There was no preparation. We didn't know how to do any of that because we'd never been asked and we never planned to do that, other than a hurricane, which is a short time where we're going to be closed down. In this case, we were looking at weeks and weeks and weeks, possibly months, which it turned into, where we couldn't bring the children back. The administration, I know that Deputy Superintendent Oswald and Chief Academic Officer Dr. Sheffield, I've been talking to them all summer. They've been working very, very hard on a new, it's been referred to now as distance learning 2.0. It is miles better than it was. Is it as good as a child sitting in front of their teacher in a classroom? Absolutely not. I've been a proponent of having the teachers come to their classrooms. They're live, and so the kids can see them. There's a schedule that the children know what the schedule is, so they're back on task with being in class with their teacher at the right time. I've asked the superintendent to make sure those classes are videotaped so that parents can go over those with their children later in the day if they have to, or on the weekends. So is it as good as children sitting in a classroom? Absolutely not. Is it better than last year? Absolutely it is.
Can you elaborate on what you discussed at the beginning of the meeting yesterday when you were talking about Dr. Alonso and wanting the health department to sign off on a letter encouraging you guys to do virtual learning? You said that she did not sign that letter. Can you elaborate on that situation and what led to all
Sure.
of that?
Commissioner Corkman issued an executive order, and in his order he said that all schools should be open 5 days a week, brick and mortar, subject to recommendations from the local health authority. The local health authority is the Palm Beach County Health Department. Dr. Alonso was at a meeting with the superintendent. She's on his task force that deals with those issues with other doctors. And she was very clear. I wasn't at that meeting, but the superintendent told me that she was very clear that she said that the schools should not be reopened at this point while we're in phase one and the epidemic is surging, the numbers are surging. So when the superintendent told me that she said that, I said, part of the template that we have to send back to the commissioner includes having to have something from the health department in order to justify why we weren't going to open but brick and mortar. So I told the superintendent we should probably get Dr. Alonso to put that in writing for us so we can submit it with the package. They were preparing that letter, and when I checked a couple days later to ask the superintendent if we had it, because I was telling the people that were writing to me that we were basing our decision on her decision. And when he told me that she wasn't giving us the letter, I asked why, and I was told that she received a call from the Surgeon General of the state of Florida, and he advised her, and I believe I was told that he advised all the other health directors around the state that they should not get involved with the decision on whether or not schools should be open. So I mean, how can we meet the commissioner's requirement to show that we wanted to postpone the opening of our schools because we had to have a letter from the health department, and the health department was told not to give us that cooperation.
Do you think that's in the best interest of the children and the staff? Her hands are tied and she's being told not to say anything?
No, I absolutely don't think that's in the best interest of the children. I mean, I think this board has made it clear. Dr. Robinson has led the charge in that we should be making our decision based on sound medical science and recommendations from the medical authorities. The health department director is the top health authority in this county, and we all agree that we should base it on sound medical advice. And when we can't get that medical advice because she's told not to give it to us, then it is problematic for us, and it harms the children.
One more question. We've heard in Martin County, Okeechobee County, some of our other viewing areas, that they provided a number of different options for parents. One of the big complaints from the parents that didn't want to see virtual is that they felt they had no options whatsoever. If other counties could do that, why not Palm Beach County?
Well, I mean, there's 67 counties in the state, 67 school districts, because each county is a school district. 64 of them are beyond phase one. There's 3 left: Palm Beach, Broward, and Miami-Dade. We're all in phase one. The Miami-Dade superintendent made it clear that they have options for parents like we do, but those options would not go into effect until phase 2 kicked in. The Broward superintendent, they have options for parents like we do, but those aren't going to kick in Broward County until phase 2. And then the board and the superintendent made it clear last night that we have options for parents. They will be able to choose to send their children back, but that's not going to kick in until we're out of phase 1 and we're in phase 2. The other counties that you mentioned, they're beyond phase one, so certainly they can go ahead and start opening their school system.
Anything else you want to add that you feel is important for parents, students regarding this? It's a difficult time, and it's also something you guys have never had to deal with before.
Yeah, I would like to, there's been some, concerns that when I made comments last night, that I'm not concerned with the pay gap that might be caused by a delay in the start of this, that I might, let me start again. There's some concerns over statements that were made last night that I might not be concerned with the pay gap that affects our employees if we delay the start of the school year. That is absolutely not the case. I mean, I've talked to Mr. Burke. We know that if we keep the employees working, the bus drivers are helping the custodians. We have teachers in training. They need the training, so there wouldn't be a pay gap for teachers in any event because we have them in training and we can pay them while they're in training. And I told Mr. Burke, if it's a question of money, we have a reserve fund. And I know that, Mr. Burke does a fantastic job of balancing a $3.5 billion budget. I get it. But a reserve fund is for circumstances that are beyond our wildest imagination, and we have it there just in case a rainy day comes. Well, I suggest that there is no bigger rainy day than a worldwide pandemic that shuts down the entire economy of every country in the world. So if we have to dip into the reserve fund at this point to pay people that are working, I'm not suggesting we pay people that aren't working, but we can keep everyone working because there's training that everyone needs. The cafeteria workers need to be trained on how we're going to deal with social distancing in the cafeteria and how we're going to get the meals out to the kids. The bus drivers need the training on how we're going to deal with that on the buses, and and if they're not able to get not in that training, then they can be trained on how to help in the schools till we need them on the buses. So I mean, certainly there's ways to keep our people keep our people working that makes sense why they're working, and certainly they can be paid if we use the money that we have available.